Oh, I've messed up here. We're just going live. Evening, cheeseheads. Sorry about no introduction tonight. I've completely messed it up. Terrible start. Pretty much like the week Spurs have had so far. I'll introduce tonight's panel. First of all, we'll get straight to the main man, the cheese room's biggest star, Dave O. How are you, Dave?
Yeah, I'm good. Well, I've woken up to yet more news about Tottenham Hotspur's football club. What on earth what on earth are we going to talk about tonight? Lovely to be on.
Yeah, brilliant. Cheers, mate. Down in the bottom, and wow, what do I say? We've had an injury to Jack, a bit like Spurs as well, and we've called in his Oppo, Irish Hotspur. How are you, mate? All right?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. In life, generally, I'm good. When it comes to Tottenham, not so good. But look, we've a lot to unpack, and thanks very much for having me, lads.
Yeah, and cheese room regular, bottom right, HG. Looking forward to tonight, mate.
Not really. No. Can we talk about Everton? I'm looking forward to that part of the show. Predict the scores for the weekend. I'm always bad at that. That's always fun. But the rest of it, yeah. Let's just get going, huh?
Yeah, well, obviously, like tomorrow's April Fool's Day, and like for every Spurs fan, that's how every day feels like at the minute, isn't it? So we don't know if tomorrow will be like full of piss take or whether it will be truth. But so a bit like Craig David's 7 days, that's the week Paratici's had. So Tuesday, video comes out of a lot of nothing, Dave. What did you think to that one? Tuesday's Paratici's
Well,
video.
I kind of, you kind of contrast it to when he joined. So first of all, he was not Steve Hitchin, so everyone was rejoicing about that. And then, as you all, he's walking around, the side of the friend. I think we played MK Dons. He's on the side of the pitch with his phone and the earpiece, and he's on the phone again. He's on the phone again. It's also very exciting. And then
Really
you take
exciting.
that, very exciting. He's not Steve Hitchin. And then you go to Tuesday night. I think he's in some hotel room on his Nokia video 1980s cam, doing some kind of a speech. And what a contrast it's all been.
Yeah, I mean, it was a load of old guff for me. But Irish, what did you think? What did you think to? So basically, we know how difficult this season has been for him personally. Saying about Conte, and the club has supported him a lot, and then basically just went on to say a lot of nothing, didn't he? In my opinion.
Yeah, look, the whole thing to me really seemed a bit rushed, seemed a bit panic station, sort of put something out there to sort of try and calm the fan base down and that. And to me, it was a load of nothing really, especially with what followed the next day. So, not very good PR by the club. But yeah, look, it all seemed a bit rushed, in my opinion. I don't think there was really much thinking behind it.
No, and HG, didn't he mention in it that we done really well to get out the group stages of the Champions League?
I think that was in there. I'll be honest, I didn't watch it. Any of the stuff he does, I haven't seen any of the transfer related kind of. At the end of the window, he comes out and says his spiel. I'm not that interested, but then I'm also not that bothered with the club coming out and saying what their plan is. You'd imagine their plan is to improve, and how are they going to do that? Well, they're going to get better players. Like I know what people want to hear, so I genuinely have no real interest in what Paratici says. I'm not surprised it was guff because one of those videos is to placate fans. So of course it's guff. They're not actually going to tell the truth. They're just going to say stuff that they think the fans want to hear.
Yeah, and I think it got completely the opposite effect, didn't it? Like basically, it was done on an old shitty Nokia camera.
I did see. I'm on my laptop right. Okay, I'm 6'3". I'm a big guy. Like if I'm on the table, you'd be doing this. That's it. Right? I wouldn't wired up. I have a laptop to base level, so it makes it easier for people to do. That's basic stuff. Which is kind of like it was like he was there with his mother-in-law. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't care. Yeah, you can see my face. This is really me. I'm on camera because I have to be on camera when I'm talking to you. But usually I'd be off doing something else, just saying a random hello. That was his attitude towards the whole thing. And but as I said, I'm not really fussed by what he said. I don't even know really what he said. I just saw the reactions that other people had from it.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a couple of things on it that I found there's a couple of things I found a little bit distasteful. Is that when he talked about Petroni, and then they panned away to the flowers on the seat and this, that, and the other. Like it's kind of, me personally, I found that a little bit distasteful in terms of the fact that he's been through a difficult time, and then we're going to pan away to show the moments around the club where it was a difficult time. That's just my own personal opinion. I thought it was just a bit distasteful. And then the other thing is that we kind of then went a full 180 degrees to talk about the academy. I mean, after saying that, we've got through the group against the mighty Eintracht Frankfurt, Sporting Lisbon, and Marseille. Well done. And we almost made a right cock up of that. And then he just completely switched to the academy. So it was a bit like you doing your holiday photos and films, and you just badly edited it. And we'll go and talk about the academy now. And thanks for your loyal support. And that was the end of it.
Yeah, and then Irish. So that came out about around 7 o'clock-ish, didn't it, on the Tuesday night? And then Wednesday, about 10 o'clock in the morning, FIFA extend his 30-month ban worldwide. Great.
Look, it makes his job untenable, in my opinion. As much as I think he's leaving the club in a better place than what he's found it. I think when that comes out, you're talking about a guy that's being put in charge of drawing up the next manager shortlist and hopefully identifying the next manager. The season's effectively over, so you should already be planning for next season in terms of recruitment and stuff like that. And he can do none of it. So for me, look, I think his job is untenable, but how did the club get themselves into this mess in the first place? Did anyone do any sort of due diligence? Was any of it sort of knocking around? Was the investigation happening when we brought this guy in? It's like, it just doesn't look good. It's like sort of one bad thing after another. So you have the Conte sack, and then you have that video, and then you have what came out the next day, and then what's come out this evening. So it's sort of like, it's all just one big mess. And I think Spurs don't need to be embroiled in anything else, and just take yourself as far away from it as possible as you can and look to get the next guy in. I thank Paratici for sort of leaving Tottenham in a better place than what he found it, but at the end of the day, there's no point of having him here if he can't execute his job. It's just another guy on the payroll without actually doing anything. We have enough of them, so we don't need more.
No, I mean, do you think he has been doing, like, obviously they're talking in the paper about him, well, in the media and stuff about him sort of already drawing up the shortlist for the new manager, or do you think that's a load of old rubbish? Do you think they've basically, since January, just literally buried their heads in the sand and said, just keep him here, we can't sack him because nothing's been done yet, and it's just escalated? Do you think that's where
there could be definitely that element to it, but look, my opinion is I think that Daniel Levy is actually relying on Paratici heavily. If you look when they brought in Paratici, they changed from what Steve Hitchens' role was, which I think was sporting director, and they brought in Paratici as director of football. And apparently he's given him a lot more power with that role, where he is sort of effectively overseeing a lot of the stuff on the football side. So for me, I think Daniel Levy, during the likes of building the stadium, building the training complex with cost Bayern, and I think he got suckered into he's all into that to try and keep it down to a bare minimum. That he sort of neglected the whole football inside of it. They part way from the academy into the first team, the scouting department, which Paratici was tasked with overhauling and bringing up to a modern day scouting system. Also with the recruiting of players, bringing in the manager. So I have no doubt that Paratici was tasked to do that. And I think Daniel Levy is sort of relying on really experienced football people. If you look at some of the managers he's hired with Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte, and bringing in Paratici as director of football, I think he is literally relying on experienced guys to try and get out of this mess. So literally, I genuinely do think that he did give Paratici the task of drawing up that shortlist and identifying the next manager.
HG, your thoughts on all these shenanigans?
Well, if we're talking about identifying the next manager, I think the four of us would come up with a 5-man shortlist that would be really identical to the one that he's come up with. Yeah. So I'm not really fussed about him no longer being in charge of this, because he's, as Irish said, like he's putting a whole team in place. He's got a second in charge. He's got a third in charge. He's got other people that can finish the job. It's not as if we're a League One team and we're looking to find an identity and we're looking like with Spurs. It's a massive club, so it's clear where we're going to be looking for the next manager. We're going to be looking for the very best yet, or those who are about to reach that stage. So to me, it's all a bit of a okay. Yeah, it's annoying and it doesn't look good, but is it really that important? Like if the team is in place, if the structure is in place, and Paratici's not there, well, someone that he rates is going to be doing it. We just don't know their name because we don't know their face, right? But we know that they've been put in place. So to me, it's like it's something to be annoyed about because we want to be annoyed. But there are massive positives. Well, then because I don't know, like it's not as if I got my head in the sand about it. I just don't think it's that important. I really don't. It would be lovely if it wasn't the case. And I think what Irish talked about before, of we should have known in advance. Well, I'm sure we did know that he was under investigation for whatever it was in Italy that
No
he ended
doubt
up getting banned for. I'm sure we know that. But I just, to me, it's a case of, well, okay, but if the club has been bettered in the last 18 months to 2 years, well, that's a good thing. And if there is a structure in place, and it's not that everyone just assumes it's going to go to Levy, I don't think it will. Levy has said, like, he's put it in place, saying, I don't really want to be that football guy. I've employed various directors of football to do it, so I'm not that person. It seems crazy to think that it's all going to go to Levy now. I don't think it will.
Yeah, so
I think the point is, and I did clip up the interview that Levy did on Levy Vision and just put it on Twitter that, you know, when he appointed Paratici, he said words to the effect of, well, I've known Fabio for a number of years, the number of discussions I've had with him over the years. Well, that's one aborted Paulo Dybala transfer, all right? So the king of spin,
that's
Mr.
the
Levy.
one you know about, Davo. Come on now. Like, that's the one you know about. You could have had various conversations about anything. Just because there's one transfer link that you seem to have remembered, or it got put in the paper.
Right.
You can't put that as fact, Dave. Seriously.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, okay, fine. That's
my opinion. So don't get you got the killer. There's a traditional killer argument you get me with. That's not that. It's coming. I know it is, and then I go, yeah, fair enough, and go do something else the rest of the day. Look, I mean, the point is, so a couple of things. One is Levy has an unfortunate record of appointing people on the football side because he gets it wrong a lot, and this looks like another one he's got wrong. I think the reality is he knew what the investigation was going on, but you know, as I think I said last week, we knew that there was an investigation going on, or Bissouma had been arrested, and we still signed him, right? And the fact of the matter is that Paratici was meant to run the football operations, which is a good thing because Levy knows nothing about football operations, but Levy's still accountable for appointing the person to do it, right? And he's got people in place now. But the thing is if we decide to hire another director of football outside of the infrastructure set up, not promote within, then they might want to bring in their own people. And when they want to bring in their own people, then the situation is you might have to have a whole load of change there. And then the only other thing to say is that the infamous DNA end of chairman's message where we're going to have exciting football and this, that, and the other. But it feels like Paratici's modus operandi was kind of appointing Italian stylish football of, well, we won't have a lot of possession or we'll hit them on the counter-attack, which is not in the DNA of the club. So it's going to be the question of who he wanted. Was it going to be that kind of manager?
Mate, he convinced Levy that Nuno could play attacking football, didn't he? Paratici. I mean, for that he should have been fucking binned. But like, my point on it, I agree with every point on here. Like, and what you said, HG, about obviously doesn't really matter if he's done good work. Like I've said on this show before, like players will go, managers will go, eventually owners and stuff will move on. I don't live near Spurs. None of my family supported Spurs. I just started supporting them from watching them as a young age. So I support sort of like the club. And what's really started to piss me off about the old Paratici thing and everything else is the embarrassment it's put on the club. So that's what's really wound me up about the whole Paratici thing. And like him doing that on a Tuesday night, then on Wednesday morning, he's like been from world football, and we've got a director of football who can't work in football. And I'm just like, it's embarrassing now. Irish, what do you agree? Do you think it's just an embarrassment on the club, the whole thing? No matter what, without getting right into it, it's just a terrible, terrible look, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. The optics, since the Champions League final is that Tottenham's, what's going on at Tottenham? Tottenham's in a crisis mode. We can't seem to get anything right. And, having this going on with Paratici when, people are saying that they knew about the investigation, it was common knowledge when they brought him in, then just don't touch him. You already know that fans are on your case. You already know fans have a problem with what a lot of what's going on at this club. So then why go and do that, knowing that fans will get annoyed if the club is shown in a bad light or put in an embarrassing light. So it just doesn't look good, and it's not good for them. It's like it's compiling one mistake with another, and then they wonder why fans get annoyed. They wonder why fans are calling for them to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And then today, HG, we get the tea time-ish. We get another club statement. Paratici has decided to take a leave of absence. Think that was cut? Do you think he actually made that decision? The club said, "Let's make that decision." Where do you think? What do you think?
I haven't seen the actual wording, but I think I saw on Twitter that someone said that it was that they agreed to do it. Like the club and Fabio together agreed this. That seems fair enough to me. I mean, clearly Levy wants to keep him around. Right, so as far as Levy's concerned, if he gets off the ban in 3 weeks, whenever the appeal is, then the worldwide ban is gone and life goes on. And none of this would have even needed to happen had the Guardian not asked the question 2 days ago. We'd have just continued until the 19th of April, and he'd have been exonerated, and then we go on. Or he'd been banned, and Spurs would have been okay. Well, then clearly now you've got to go, but we've got a plan of action, or we've got a team behind him. Like it doesn't look great, but I feel like to me at least, a lot of this it reflects. It's a stain on the reputation of Spurs has been written by the media. They want it to be a stain on the reputation. Look, no one looks good, but again, it's a football club making a bad decision. That's it. That happens a lot. Like it's not a stain on the reputation of a football club if they make a bad decision. I feel like the whole thing's been overblown somewhat. I understand that clearly that you could have had issues, 2 years ago when he was appointed because, as the comments say, like the investigation was going then. But I feel as if it was all kind of like, the club wouldn't have done it if they'd have known. But there was no in-depth questioning about it. No one's really talked about it until the ban was put down, January, whenever that was. It all seems like suddenly, we can kick Spurs right now. We're going to do it, and I don't really see that myself. I mean, I don't have to deal with the meme. I saw Kerry put a comment about having to deal with all the memes and the jokes at work. I don't have to deal with that. I just see a football club has made a number of bad decisions, and that's not new at Spurs. So why is this one suddenly a massive stain? Why is appointing Jose why was that not called a massive stain? Why was sacking him the week of the cup final not called a massive stain? To me, that's far worse. Or like the whole joining the European Super League. That was a massive stain. If anything was going to be, but not, some bloke finally being banned worldwide when we all knew that was probably going to happen anyway. I feel like they've just jumped on it. It's like International Week. We can't talk about Kane anymore. Let's stick the boot in on Spurs.
Davo.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
yeah, but I mean, the thing is about your work, HG. It's not if one of your pupils sends you a gift or a meme, you can stick him in detention. We can't do that. We have to put up with it. We can't send a colleague to detention as much as we'd like to. I think the thing is that it's been quite literally since that outburst at Southampton up until now, it's just been, the Daily Telegraph who just have got it absolutely in for Tottenham. They really do. And Matt Law, I'm talking to you in particular, right? Got it in for them. Even when Kane got his records, there's a little snidey comment about, he might have to leave and this, that and the other, or how long he's got left on his contract. Because they can't handle Tottenham having an intergenerational talent like Harry Kane. And if you look at the top six, of which we are part of the top 6. But then you look at the mainstream media and you look at the weight of ex-players and people associated with the other 5, we're the least represented, and therefore we always get the kicking. I mean, who do we get to represent us on Talk Sport? Jamie O'Hara and Darren Bent.
Oh, dear.
Says it all, doesn't it?
Darren Bent doesn't represent us, does he? He represents Arsenal.
No, I know. He said Levy get the deal done. I don't want to go to Hull. Remember that? So, it's the unfortunate thing is that we're in a period of time at the moment where the news is all about us, and it's Conte's rant, it's Conte going, the whole contract, and how long that took to sort out, which I understand why. Then we get the video, which was just ridiculous, as in poorly produced and all the rest of it. Then you get the very next day, serendipity, karma, whatever you call it. That's when FIFA come out with their thing, and then after that, it's we get that. So that's where we are at the moment. And am I embarrassed about it? I mean, it's a little bit embarrassing from the point of view that something that we're all from my point of view, something that you're emotionally invested in, been supporting them for God knows how many years, and seen some great times and seen some absolute troughs, of which I don't think this isn't Barnsley away going 1 down and we might get relegated and Arsenal going to win the league. It's not that bad, right? But it's basically a situation where we're 4th in the league. I don't think we're going to get top 4, and we've got yet another big summer ahead of us. So it's the thing that annoys me. It's the cycle ever repeats now every 18 months.
I saw earlier the Premier League. They released a video. You see those videos and they show you like a timeline of like who were the biggest club or who had the most money or whatever, and it goes over a period. They showed a timeline of the league table this season, starting week 1 to where we 28 games in, and which clubs, and they've gone up and down the league and Spurs had never been lower than 5th all season in the Premier League. They've never been lower than 5th, and so you're just like, look, I get it's bad decision after bad decision, but the club is not in a bad place. It's clearly going to have to change what it's doing, but isn't that what we wanted? We wanted some kind of change. We wanted them to do something different because, we've been aware that we've been buying players and then the next manager's come in and said, we don't want them anymore, let's ship them out on loan. Like, we all know that something needed to change. So if this is what's going to be the reason for it to happen, okay, I'm all right with that. I just feel like it's been massively overblown when there are clubs in a far worse position than us who have made decisions just as bad routinely as we have, but they don't get half the hassle for it.
The thing is, what I would say to that is I think many people are scared of us falling behind. I think when you got to look at it, I think from Pochettino to hiring the likes of a Jose and a Conte, I think the club have tried to take that next step to try and get over the line and deliver the trophies. However, they haven't done everything they can to give their managers what they need to be able to get over the line to do that. In case, especially of the back line. You even look at this season, Antonio Conte in his final season at Inter Milan conceded 36 goals in 38 Premier League games. This season, we've conceded 40 in 28. The only signings we've made since Toby and Jan have been Romero, Joe Rodon, who's now gone, and Lenglet, who was brought in on loan. We haven't done anywhere near enough to be able to, overhaul that defence in general, to be able to give us a chance. Because if you keep clean sheets, you'll always take points. But we don't keep clean sheets. And when you look at the likes of Brighton coming up, who seem to be doing everything right, you got Fulham now coming to the fore. Looks like they've sort of got their recruitment issues that they've had over the last few years. They're starting to get them right. And you've got Newcastle, who are sort of hovering above there. Liverpool will probably be back next season. Chelsea will probably be back next season. And we are in danger of falling further and further behind. We talk now about being a part of the top 6, but it was only under Jose Mourinho where we finished 7th that season in the Europa Conference League. And we've already seen, with the wrong recruitment, with bad decisions and stuff like that, how quickly you can fall from grace from the Champions League final to Europa Conference League to 7th place finish in the league. And we sort of clawed that back with Antonio Conte, but now it looks like we took 2 steps forward to take another 3 back. And I think from my point of view, I think we're in danger. That I don't think we have too many more times to get this right. We've made a number of bad decisions. We've been lucky enough that we've been able to maintain it. But, it's you keep playing that game of chance. Eventually, you're going to get caught, and eventually you will lose that. And then it will take you a number of years to get back. And I think that's where someone like me is coming from. I don't want to fall further and further behind. There's no doubt that this club has grown from when I was a kid in the 90s watching Tottenham being mid-table to where we are present day.
Them were the days.
We are very in danger of going back down that route. We are in danger of going back down that route, and I don't want that, because then you gotta look at it. Everything that everyone accuses Levy and Enic of in the first place, of being here for the money, this, that, and the other. If we're going back to where we were when they first picked up the club, the optics are that that's true.
No, HG, what do you think on those points?
I mean, this is it. Like, if we're saying that Brighton are having the best season they've ever had, right, and they've been getting better over the years. Obviously, I think they finished 9th last year, which was their highest ever, and De Zerbi's got them scoring more goals. There's a chance they might lose a couple of players this summer, right? I mean, that's what tends to happen to those teams that do quite well. They end up their players get poached by bigger clubs, like Spurs are right now. There was a time when we were one of those that saw our players get poached. But when was the last time we sold one of our better players? Like, it doesn't seem to happen that much anymore. They might leave on a free, but I can't remember us really. Like, was it really Walker? Was the last time we sold one of our better players? So, like, I understand. Like we've made continuous bad decisions over a number of years, right? Most of which that we all kind of saw coming. Like, it's not like, I think when it comes to player purchases, a number of us thought that those players weren't good enough when we signed them. So it feels like, yes, I get that, there is always the danger. Like, we could do a West Ham who have a huge amount of revenue and are in the bottom 3. But I get the impression that even after 3 or 4 years of bad decisions, maybe longer than that really, 5 or 6 now, we are, thanks to Harry Kane, and it is only Harry Kane, but we are, thanks to Harry Kane, still, in contention for a top 4 place, something that we were never at for a very long time. The idea of even dreaming of finishing 4th felt so weird for a long time. So I just, given the size of the club and how much money they do have and the revenue that we do get, it does feel as if that maybe 8th, like, even if you make bad decisions, we've still got enough money to make enough good ones that we should be all right. Like, losing Kane will make it very difficult. Don't get me wrong. If King goes, we need to find the goals from somewhere, and that may not happen. But I still believe that a half-decent manager could take the players that we have and get us into the situation that Brighton are in or that Fulham are in, right? Where we'd be thinking, oh, well, a couple more signings, and maybe we could start challenging for trophies. I mean, not the league title, obviously, but if we take the cup seriously, you just never know. Newcastle took the cup seriously and they got to the final and lost. But, they're just one game away. We'd all take that. Since the Champions League final, we've had one cup final. In the years leading up to the Champions League final, how many cup finals did we have in those seasons? I don't remember many.
Chelsea
we got to semi-finals.
Yeah, Chelsea League Cup.
Pochettino got to 2 League Cup finals in his first 2 seasons, and then we had nothing until the Champions League final. And since then, we've had the League Cup final again, which, of course, sacking Jose was ridiculous just days before it. So I don't know. I don't want to be as negative as everyone seems to be. I get negative at times, don't get me wrong, but I don't feel it's as bad as everyone is saying right now.
Brilliant, because we do need some positivity on here, HG, and you're giving us that. That's great. But Davo, Irish is right that we don't want to fall behind, and if you keep making bad decisions, that can happen. But I think as well, Spurs we're on this cusp at the minute that if somebody comes out and grabs hold of it, takes some leadership now, and says this has happened, but this is what we're going to do. Probably the chairman or someone. I'm going to appoint, this is what I'm going to do. We're going to set all these wheels in motion. Then we're at a point where 1 or 2 good decisions could really push us forward, couldn't they, Dave? Is there anyone at the club that's going to make those decisions?
I'm really sorry. I don't have any faith in Daniel Levy making a decent football decisions. I'm sorry. That's how I feel, and I have felt like that for a very, very long time. Okay, and we are in a mess in a way. Not as big a mess. We've seen bigger messes. We could probably do a top 5 worst messes than this. but we're not in a good place, right? And so, pragmatically, what are we going to actually need in the summer? We're going to need a new first team coach. The women's team also need a new first team coach. And we also presumably we're going to get a new director of football in, who, if we're going to get a new director of football in, they might have to be responsible for finding the new coach. So that's what we need. We have our record goal scorer going down to the last year of his contract. So a decision's got to be made about, well, let's just let it run it down. And I think we would. And you kind of got to make a bit of I think, and I know people don't like this, but we've got to make a bit of a decision about a sacred cow known as Heung-Min, that we're really bad at selling players. We're really bad at selling players.
Just because we don't... Sorry, Dave, but that's because when we're talking about Brighton earlier, we don't have succession plans for somebody like moving people like Son on, do we? Or am I saying that wrong? Because I know we've got Richarlison, but a lot of like Brighton will... Trossard goes... Somebody like Matoma is at that club ready to slide in that position. We don't. That's another thing what people get pissed off about is that we don't seem to have those succession plans.
No, we don't.
Can I
go on.
Sorry.
No, you go.
I think the whole thing with Son, right, is his deal's until what, 2025? So, none of us thought he'd have the season that he's had, right? Including Son, but really no one thought he would go off the cliff. But it was 3 years. So if you're trying to sell yourself as a club to a young player, the next Son, and you say, you know what, for 2 seasons you're going to be his backup rotation, and then maybe towards the end of his contract we'll try and sell him for a few million, who's going to make that journey? I think we saw with Juan Foyt. I've always believed this, that he was signed to be Toby's long-term replacement. And then Toby never left. And so Juan Foyt was kind of stuck as the 4th choice. Only ever really got to play if Toby was injured. And of course, and then he got played at right back, and he was all played a bit like he never got to develop in the way that the club probably wanted him to. I think they thought, you'll be here for a year and a half, Toby will go, you'll be 2021, the position is yours. If you can sell your club as that, then brilliant. Players might fall for it. Players might go for it. But in Son's position... Again, who's gonna sign to be Kane's backup when he's on a 6-year deal? It'd be someone like Llorente, who was happy to take a couple of years on good money and be useful. Right? But you're not going to get the next Kane to be his backup. So it's a very difficult thing to succession plan. The good thing with Brighton, and I say this again, Brighton know that they will sell their players, and players know that Brighton will sell their players. So it becomes much easier to sell yourself as a succession planning club. Brighton have the team in Belgium that won, I think, the Belgian league last year. So those players, they play in Belgium for a year or two, and then they come over. And so obviously they're an extremely well-run club. I'm not denigrating Brighton, but again, is that really what we want Tottenham to be? Is that what Tottenham are going to be? I think we should still see ourselves as that, but it sucks. Because until we start winning trophies, I think players will see us as a stepping stone, and we have to then adapt and view ourselves in the same way.
Okay, so Irish, let's sort of finish the Paratici bit. What next for Paratici, mate? Do you, in your sort of from seeing what you see, does Paratici, if he gets off, he obviously just comes back in, keeps his job, or do you think the club look? We don't really want this going on around our club. Do they move him on? Where do you think his future lies with the club?
No, look, I think they're banking on him being innocent, if you want me to be brutally honest, for that ban to be taken away. And I think if it is, I think he will be brought back in here, because it's only a leave of absence depending on the appeal process. So that tells me that there is maybe a plan for him to step back in here. And the reason why I say that is Daniel Levy is supposed to be a long-term fan of Paratici. He's longly admired what he's done, how he conducts business and stuff like that. And like I said already, I think the fact that he gave him a director of football role and increased his role from what Steve Hitchen's role was, I think it shows that Daniel Levy really likes him. And also, I don't think Tottenham want to sort of rip up what he's done in terms of the scouting department, bringing in people in certain positions, bringing in video analysts, bringing in local scouts that can send players to the club, for them to have a look at and all that sort of stuff. He's done loads of stuff in terms of that. And I don't think the club want to change that direction. And look, rightly so, in my opinion, to be fair as well, because if you're the club and you've brought him in and you put so much money in, bringing in people that he's wanted, going down his line of vision of recruitment and stuff like that, I don't think the club sort of want to change the vision and go with something else, a new director of football and a new manager. But I mean, it just doesn't look good on the club having all this going on and him, because you're getting to the point where everyone's going to start investigating every single deal Tottenham do to see if they can find something to hang Paratici, and it's just a headache I don't think we need.
Do you mean like 25 million on Emerson Royale to start with?
Look, you know there will. There's going to be people out there from that Prisma investigation. That wouldn't surprise me if they're already looking into some of the dealings that Paratici has done at this football club. You look at Romero, bringing him in with sort of no cash. He also had him at Juve and stuff like that, and was the one that brokered the deal to Atlanta and everything else. So I've no doubt that they're sort of going to look for ties between both clubs.
Yeah, I mean, I should imagine they are.
Yeah, like it does feel that since Paratici was there, and maybe even before, but certainly for the last few years, the club has decided we want to buy players who are 25 and younger, and maybe they're proven, maybe they're not, but we want the younger guys who are going to spend 3-4 years of their prime playing for Spurs to build something, right? The only one I can think of that's outside of that are the lone goalkeepers and Perisic. And Perisic was clearly a Conte choice. So that, again, we all sat here and thought, Perisic wasn't my first choice, but clearly none of us thought that it had been foisted upon Conte when he signed. And if Spurs are going to be that, brilliant. We'll make bad choices, I've no doubt. We bought Andy Reid all those years ago. That wasn't a great choice.
Oh, I liked him.
Bad players in the.
Hang on a minute.
I didn't mean that. Sorry, but
slow down.
Cracking goal against the Villa.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had his moments, but sadly not for Spurs.
Backtracking.
But it's true though. We bought a lot of players, and some didn't work out as much as others.
Yeah,
right?
we have, mate.
That's where we are, right? If you want to pick, we could sit here and say that Ndombele was a success because he helped get us to a League Cup final, which he did, right?
Yeah.
He just didn't get to play in it. But that was the season that he played a lot under Mourinho. So there's lots of things here at play. I just feel like the club are starting to make better decisions recruitment-wise. And I always feel that the recruitment is everything. If you buy bad players, your season will go... I mean, it's obvious. This is not brain surgery. But Arsenal went and spent 70-odd million on Nicolas Pepe. Absolute waste of money. They went and spent a fortune on Lacazette. Waste of money. A fortune on Aubameyang. Scored a lot of goals. Didn't really help them. And they went and changed their way, and they've bought really well. And sadly, we now have to look at the results of that. But strictly speaking, if you buy good players and you have a good manager with a plan, you'll win lots of games. You'll get better. So I think that the philosophy, if there is one, of what the club is trying to do with players, like Reguilon cost a lot of money, but he'd won something with Seville. He seemed to be an up and coming guy. Great. I feel like the biggest issue with Spurs is that for people like Romero and maybe Lo Celso, given some of the stories that you read in the papers, we are a club that can financially secure players, and then maybe they don't really care anymore. It's a chance of this. We are not, whereas for years in the 90s we were someone's last paycheck. Now it feels like we're a lot of players' first paycheck, and they're like, I'll sign for Spurs if you give me XXX, right? And Spurs are kind of in that position where, well, we can't show them that we win trophies, and we can't show them that we've got stability. So we're forced to go and do that. Right? I was really surprised that we went and got Ndombele, because he seemed to be wanted by so many clubs around Europe. But now when you look back, you think, well, he seemed to be quite happy to pick Spurs. And what was the reason? I don't, I'm leading here, but it just feels like Spurs need to figure out that middle ground of we want players that will want to come and play regularly and will want to achieve and don't want a butt ton of money to do so. And understand that Levy will happily, and he does this, he's proven to do this, if you perform, you will get a new deal, you will get a pay rise. And maybe because of the revenue that Spurs have now, players are saying, I don't need that from you. Right? I'll wait and get paid somewhere else. It's an interesting, everything is changing. The successful system that we seem to have, I'm just not sure it's available to us anymore.
The problem we have there is, I agree with you. I think if you look at the likes of the way the recruitment's going, I don't mind it. I actually like it. We've lowered the average age of the squad. I think we've got out a lot of dead weight, and I think there's got more to go. But the problem we have, and you've even seen it glimpses with Conte, the club want to bring in people like Spence. Then the manager doesn't want them. The same as someone like Danjuma. They bring in Danjuma on loan to sort of help out, and the manager won't play him because he doesn't want him. And the problem we have is that the manager, the DOF, and Daniel Levy, none of them align. They just do not align on things. And that's where this has been the massive problem in the club over the last few years. Look at the amount of recruitment Steve Hitchen done. We've nearly turned all that over. And the reason why is because we're going through managers like relegation teams relying on manager bounces. Jose Mourinho, 18 months. Nuno, 5 months. Conte, 16 months. And now you've got Care, and you've had Mason in Care take a charge in between that, and Mason and Stellini again in the space of 3 seasons. We haven't had one manager in the dugout for a full season since Pochettino was sacked. And this is where the problem is. The people in management, director of football, and Daniel Levy, they don't align. They're not on the same page. And you have to get them all on the same page for this to sort of work. Like when Pochettino came in here, they were aligned. That's no problem. Let's get rid of some of the old guard, the likes of Adebayor and that, and let's start bringing through. Let's start getting in some younger players and stuff like that. And that's what Pochettino sort of done similar to Southampton. He brought in a lot of young players and sort of developed them and brought them forward. And he sort of done the same at Tottenham when he got here. And when you look at Paratici's recruitment, a lot of it has been 25 or under. So it seems like we're going down that route again. But then you sort of bring in a manager for the win now sort of. For the win now, but we don't give them the win now players, and then the managers get frustrated, the players get frustrated, the chairman gets frustrated, the fans get frustrated, and then it all just blows up. But the problem is it's blowing up way too frequently, and it shouldn't be blowing up this too frequently. Nowhere near it.
But that's not new. That's not new. Sorry, Dave. I'll come to you on this point because Hoddle always used to say that the coach, and the director of football need to fit together like hand in glove. He had Pleat, and I don't think they saw eye to eye. We get in Santini. Well, we get Santini because that's who Levy wanted. Arneson wanted Yo. That blew up. Like you said, we do these things, but we don't. We never get it to align properly, do we, Davo? Because this is what's happening now. Even though we are doing better, we can never get it bang on, can we, mate? With the direct football, because like Levy starts poking his nose in, and he's meant to be leaving it to the director of football to do it, and then it just becomes a fucking issue, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when you look over the 22 years of Enic's wonderful tenure of our club, I think you can pick out certain points of it where there's been alignment and stability. It's not a lot. So you had the Poch and Mitchell era, right? Because Mitchell was more hits than misses in his recruitment. There were some misses, but that was perfect.
Misses, mate. Everyone has misses, to be fair.
So what I'm saying is you got alignment there, and it's all beautiful and fine, right? Then you had, as you said, the Arneson, Santini, Yol. Santini went back because his mother-in-law wasn't feeling well. But you had Arneson and Yol. But then Arneson got nicked by Chelsea. Then Kamoli gets in. And Kamoli got players that Yol didn't like. They fell out, and that was the end of that one. And then you had Harry Redknapp. They don't have a director of football. They bring the ketchup back into the canteen, and we have a period of stability with Redknapp, ketchup, and Levy. And that worked all very nicely. And then you had about, that's what you have. But Iris has got to hit the nail on the head. And I think we're all agreed here from the point of view of you have to have alignment between who the coach is and the style of play they want to play, the director of football and who they recruit to fit into that style of play, and the owner who keeps out of it. And, Levy did make a conscious decision to step away from football, but he got involved in the Spence negotiation. I mean, I think he was a little bit. I mean, the reports are that he wanted to take advantage of Everton's financial issues by spending 50 million quid on Richarlison, which is not exactly taking advantage, is it? And here we are. So as we go into reboot number 754, we've got to look at the coach aligned with director of football, and Levy just makes sure that the checkered flags on the go-kart course is all working nicely.
All right, I'm going to be the voice of difference again. Look,
Excellent. Here we go. But hang on, you already were about Andy Gray, so you're going to top Andy Reid. So top that. Go.
Sorry, Andy Reid's just the one that came to mind. It wasn't. Anyway, look, but like the fans have said for a while, we want win now players, right? Of course, we want win now players. We've got all this money. We're a massive behemoth revenue-wise. We want win-now players. We want, Mourinho wanted Skriniar. Well, you know what? Skriniar wanted a payoff, right? He ended up at PSG. He's not interested in anything bar money, and we wouldn't have had the money to get him. To pay the fee and then pay him what he wanted, not interested. He had no interest in leaving anyway at that point. Same with Bastoni. There's a whole number of win-now players that we just haven't been able to get. Even if we really wanted them, they've turned around and said, I'd rather go somewhere else. That's an unfortunate situation of where we are. So when you've got, Levy's thinking, well, look, we've got a really good team. I'm going to get a win-now manager, and the win-now manager needs win-now players that we can't buy. At some point, it's like, well, what can we buy? What can we do to improve? And if that means buying these younger players who are 25 and under trying to prove something, well, then they probably want a manager who is in that category of needs to try and prove something. You have that's the disconnect here, is that in some cases, fans want something that we can't prove, we can't get. And I know we've got a big fancy stadium, and I know people are paying a huge amount of money, but you cannot convince a player who is 28 and who wants to continue winning trophies to join Spurs. You can't. They would rather earn less money and go and play at Juventus or go and play at PSG and earn a bit more money and be guaranteed to win stuff. But Spurs, we don't guarantee anything apart from money. That's the sad issue. So it feels like until Spurs hit that target of being a club that wins things, until we find our, in Chelsea's case it was flipping Abramovich, and in Arsenal's case it was Wenger, and in United's case it was Ferguson. But until we find our version of that, and it doesn't appear like the owners are going to be it, so it needs to be a manager, we are always going to be in that place. And so I think understanding that, before Tuchel got picked by Bayern, you had a lot of fans who were thinking, I want Tuchel, he's the best guy, but he's a win-now manager. And the club cannot get those players that he wants. I think that's clear now that we may have the money to do it, but they don't want to join Spurs. So at some point it becomes, well, who is the next? Is it going to be a De Zerbi character? Is it going to be, for the Australians watching, a Postecoglou character? Is it going to be someone who hasn't actually got it yet? Because I feel like that's also an issue. The fans and their expectations when it comes to players and managers are not what Spurs can really get them. Even if Levy was throwing in 200 million a year, I just don't. He spent a load of money in the last 2 years, and we still haven't got those players that have won things.
Yeah, maybe what we should do to try and get to a position to do that is not bin off League Cups and FA Cups, HG. Then we'll be in a slightly better position to get those players, aren't we, that we're talking about that want to come to clubs that win stuff. But Irish,
Can I? I'm just reading the comment that Paddy's put.
Yeah.
When is the last time I went wow with the signing? I don't give a shit how I feel when they're signed. I care that the club gets better. That's it.
Klinsmann.
It could be some unknown from Belgian football, and if it turns out to be a world star, fantastic. That is what is important, not whether I can go around to my mates and say, oh, look, we've signed someone. Come on. It's not about me. It's about the team getting better.
I think many fans were expecting this when they got the move to the new stadium and stuff like that. And I think that's where it comes from, that many fans were expecting this and feel like they were promised it. And it hasn't sort of been delivered.
And they're paying ridiculous prices. Again, I've always hated the prices at Spurs. I get that. There's this idea that we've got this behemoth and we've got all this money. And you know what? That's good because it's one more than we had before. But if you're a player, you want money, you want to play, and you want the chance of trophies. And at Spurs, we didn't have the money for a while. We do now. We didn't have a chance to play because we had a really good first 11 that never got dropped. So players weren't going to come in for that. And we don't have trophies. So where are we now? Well, we can offer money, but we can't really offer the other two because, like, again, if you look at, unless you're a centre back or a goalkeeper, you look at Spurs. Am I really going to play? Am I going to come in and be a wing back? Am I going to come in and play instead of Kane? Probably not. So that's kind of where you are. Like, the players will have, surely they look at the situation and think, am I going to come in and play? And if they don't, they're thinking, how much money can I earn? Because they're not thinking about trophies with Spurs. So I understand that fans will be thinking that because they're paying through the nose and they've had crap football to watch. But I don't think Spurs, regardless of how much money they're playing and how much revenue is coming in, I don't think Spurs are that. We have to become that by building a team in the way that Poch did.
Yeah, I mean, I was a bit like, to be fair, when we signed Bissouma, I was like, wow, what a signing. Not mega world star. Then we got him and didn't fucking play him. So proves what I know. But
yeah, but
Irish.
Gibbo, just a point back that you just made before about binning off the domestic cups, right? If you're talking about this season, you look at the Sheffield. I'm really sorry to say this, that we play against Sheffield United and made 8 changes, and the team that we had out that night. Okay, when everyone's moaning about, we didn't play Kane, we didn't play Romero or Skipp. There was enough in that team before the game to beat Sheffield United away. I didn't watch the game. I understand. Obviously stunk the place out. If we're a team that is challenging for top 4 and domestic trophies, there is a squad, no matter how we would argue it's badly managed and all the rest of it this season, there's enough there to win. That to me is not binning off a cup. And you go back to the Carabao Cup, I couldn't believe that Kane was picked to play against Forest away, right? And I think there was injuries and this, that, and the other. And that performance stunk out the place as well. So I don't necessarily buy into we bin the domestic trophies this season. There was enough there. We should have got through those games.
Yeah, I think in that case, it's more of how we choose to play the games.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, players will do what they're told by the manager.
Exactly.
I mean, that's it. Like if I'm told to play a certain way and I think, sod that, thanks Antonio, you're getting sacked in 2 weeks, I'm going to play how I want, that would be a shambles, weirdly. Even if I would love it, I would love us to be more attacking, that would have been the shambles. Players want to play, and the only way they're going to play is if the manager trusts them. And Conte had proven that with how he's treated the players that he didn't pick or he didn't think are good enough or whatever it was he made up to decide that they weren't ever going to get a chance. I mean, it's crazy. Was it one training session that he'd had before he said that Spence was a club signing? Had he had a training session? It's just crazy. So, I understand that the players out there you'd think are good enough to go and win, but teams beat individuals. And that's what happened that night at Forest, and that's what happened that night at Sheffield United. They had a team. Sheffield United had a bunch of reserves playing that night, but they were still better than Spurs and deserved to win. Didn't matter what the quality of the player that we had. We just played badly, and we were told to play a way that doesn't suit the players.
Yeah, I mean, we had can you remember in our WhatsApp group, HG? I think me and you, there was a few people who said we don't want to win that cup anyway. It's like a Mickey Mouse Cup, and we're like, what right have we got to sort of we don't win anything. What right do we have to sort of say, oh, we don't want that cup, it's a load of old rubbish? That is exactly, if we're trying to build, that is exactly the type of trophies that we need to be trying to win. Do you know what I mean?
Everyone talks about the first trophy that teams win, right? Everyone talks about it, right? Whoever it is, Chelsea, Liverpool under Klopp, Man City, won 4 League Cups in a row, something stupid like that. If you want to have a winning culture, you need to win. You need to play attacking football and try and score more goals than the opponents rather than have us concede fewer. I know it's the same thing, but it's not. It's a mentality difference. You're right. If Spurs, and Pochettino's right. If Spurs win the League Cup, does it change Spurs as an entity? No. But it does mean that players will look at Spurs and think, hey, they're going to try and take things seriously. They're going to try and win me trophies. And because Spurs haven't for a long time. Mourinho got us to the final, and then what happened? And we weren't a good side. And City probably would have beaten us even with Mourinho in charge. But you're there. You have the opportunity. It is in front of you. We had a number of piss-easy draws under Pochettino to get to various semi-finals. Was it Wickham at home, and we almost messed that up. Millwall in the quarterfinals or something stupid like that. Like, we've had the opportunities to do it, but for whatever reason, something else has been considered more important. And at the business end of the season, in April and May, they're all important. There is no difference here. Like, you find a way to manage your workload, but they are all important. I wish that Spurs would see every game as important, but, and maybe that comes from Levy. Clearly, they look at league placings as being important because it brings more money in. And that's sad because football isn't about money, really, is it? None of us watch football because, I don't know.
We know it's not about trouble or about trophies. I think you're absolutely spot on there, HG. If you look at they sacked Pochettino because it didn't look like he was going to get fourth. They sacked Jose Mourinho because it looked like, it was cheaper to sack him, but also it looked like fourth was off the table. Same with Nuno, we were miles off it, so they got rid of him. So that precedent is being set by them. But then the fans are expecting managers to come in and take the domestic cup seriously. But reality is, why would they when they know that that's not what their job depends on? They can go out and
they're probably getting massive. They're getting massive bonuses too, most likely.
Yeah, and there's no big bonus on the likes of the FA Cup or that either as well. But also we can't keep blaming the managers for picking certain players to go out there because if that's coming down from the top, it's dictated on the money coming in from Fort, which, look, with the way football is nowadays, you've got to understand that. But at some stage, they've got to provide a manager, a squad to be able to compete on all four fronts. They want to be a team that goes into every season competing on four fronts. So they've got to provide that. Look, it's not just on them. For me, I don't think just changing the director of football manager is going to sort this out. I believe you've also got to change the captain. You look at our away record in cups over the, spanning back from Pochettino to now. A lot of the cups we go out in, we always go out away from home, regardless of the team. You even look at this season, Nottingham Forest away from home, Sheffield United away from home. You go into the Europa Conference League, Enis Moura away from home, Vitesse away from home, Reims, Drew away from home.
That's weak mentality, that. Yeah,
it repeats itself in the domestic cups as well, League Cup, FA Cup, dating back then, and it's a serious mentality problem. The whole mentality around Tottenham, in my opinion, has to change. It has to change. We need people in here that want to step up, that want to win things. If you're thrown out there on a cold Wednesday night down in Sheffield United in the piss and rain, so be it. Look at it as an opportunity to represent Tottenham Hotspur and wear that badge with pride. Even if the manager throws them out there in his system, it's too easy for the players not to give it their all and blame the manager's system. And that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm seeing them do, especially against Southampton. They're well able to hide behind the manager and blame his system, but no one can tell me in the second half they made effort to go and close people down to try and get a hold of the ball and start playing. None of them done it. So, I think just in general, the whole culture needs to change.
Yeah, because Irish, when you say about that, what tells you the mentality of these players is under Nuno, those players within a week, 2 weeks, went from being nearly the bottom of running, getting round the pitch, to fucking top, didn't they? Within 2 weeks, the distances they were covering. So yeah, you're right, but that is a whole a cultural change, isn't it, Davo? Like the senior pros at our club, that they've been there too long. Are they part of this? Are they part of this cultural change that needs to happen? I sort of I don't put Kane in that really because he is literally an absolute fucking god, really. Do you know what I mean? Without him, this season we'd be really struggling. But part of this cultural change, senior players got to move on.
Yeah, we do. We've kept Davis and Sanchez around for ages.
He's not a senior player, mate.
No, he's just.
I don't class him.
No, but what I'm saying is that look, the domestic trophy thing, right, is very much the day at Wembley or getting up in the middle of the night or anything like that. The last time when we won the League Cup, my oldest had just been born. I had to silently dance around the living room and not wake him up. And we've beaten the Chelsea. It was fantastic, right? And you have that moment at the stadium where the trophy's lifted. The fans and the players are celebrating together. That's where it all comes together. And I can't underestimate the that bond and what it is for the culture of the club, right? You know, I think Paddy made a comment about, you know, when we won in '81 and what it meant there, the players grew in confidence. They had that night with the fans. As I said, now I understand that there's no reason why a club of our size with this lovely stadium and go-kart track and all the rest of it, that we can't get fourth as a minimum and win a domestic trophy. Okay? And then we go back to the mentality and we look at that kind of thing as well. There are a lot of players who've been there a long time and who need to go. And you have to look at a situation that I hate to say it, that lot south of the river, the Goons, they've cancelled contracts, paid people out and out the door. The only person we've done that to is Serge Aurier. And we've got to seriously think about that in the summer where we just say, cut your losses and then you go. And that's it, right? And so when I say Son to go, is because I think we could get a bit of money for him. And it's the example of, you know, you look at Liverpool, they buy well and they sell well. I mean, the people who are moaning about Mane, they got 40 million for him. They've not had a great season. I get that. But you look at, they got in Jota, they got in Diaz.
He's been injured, hasn't he, Diaz?
And then they've got in I can't pronounce it. Cody, what's his face?
Gakpo.
That's the one. So they do it really well. We just let people hang around because Levy wants a huge amount of prices from players that he's never going to get as well. I mean, the Matt Doherty thing. Well, that's just. I mean, that's just another example of poor management of arrangements and things like that. So that's Dave, where we are, right?
So David, yes. if someone offers 15 million for Son in the summer, would you take it?
I wouldn't mind 25.
Yeah, but see, I mean, that's the question, isn't it? Like, why would anyone spend 25 million on a guy that's had the season Son's had? Right? Like, I understand the logic. Yeah, like it would be lovely to get rid of the players who we think are, but if we think they're rubbish, probably other people do too. Like Mane wanted like financial parity with Salah, wasn't going to get it. Wanted to go to Bayern. It was done, right? So I understand that. Like, but Bayern had the money and were willing to do it because Bayern don't mind spending 30 million on a striker who he's been injured half the season anyway. That to them is not an issue. I just feel like with Spurs, there are players like Sanchez. I think Sanchez has a year left on his deal this summer. Same with Dier, right? They're in the same situation that Aurier was to whenever we let him go. The club could easily do that. They could say, you know what, Sanchez, thanks for everything. We'll pay you off you go, right? And Sanchez I'm sure would be okay with that. I'm sure Dier would be okay with it. But I just feel that, like, after a while, like, they are only going to be squad players. I understand that. We're not going to do that with Kane, who'll have a year left on his deal. We won't say, thanks, Kane, off you go. We'll pay you off now. You know, I said that. Anything is possible. I don't think that's possible, but anything is possible.
Tomorrow morning, I'll look at my fight. What? Kane? Go on.
I think we all know the players that don't have a future at Spurs long term. Doesn't matter who the manager is. I can't see the new manager coming in and saying, Davinson Sanchez is my idol CB. That won't happen. I think it's been a case of, because we've had to make so many changes to the squad, and we've had to do all these things, and the one area we haven't talked about, we haven't changed, as Irish said earlier, is the defence. We bought Romero, and in that time we've lost Vertonghen and Alderweireld, so we've basically sold two, and then one's come in. They've been kept around because like we decided that the value was in striking areas, or the money needed to go in the midfield, because you know when Mourinho was around and our midfield was Sissoko and Hojbjerg in a back nine or whatever it was, clearly at that point, midfield was the area we all thought that needs to be improved upon. Like Dombele and Celso, we needed someone to kind of knit it all together, and we didn't really have it. And then maybe last year it was a case of, well, you know, we're going to take advantage of Everton, we're going to buy Richarlison, we're going to use that money there, and Kulusevski, obviously, before we realised that we needed someone. So, like, I understand that it's almost like one summer we said midfield, the next summer we said attack, and now defence is, you know, we had Sanchez and we had Dier and we had people that could do a job, and this will be the summer that it gets done. I don't know if Spurs are ever going to be the club that says, you know what, we're going to get 6 world-class players in, we're going to change up half the team in one go. I don't see us ever doing that. Partly because of those players we probably can't attract. Like Chelsea went out and bought Cucurella and Koulibaly and all the others they bought in the last year. But how many of them have we thought, well, that would have been all right? That would have been a good idea for Spurs long term. Because Koulibaly's done nothing special for Chelsea. He would have been better than what we had, no doubt about it. But we'd be sitting here thinking the guy is 32. He's going to be off soon. We need to be thinking younger. It's a weird. It's a question of priorities, I guess. And this summer it will be defence. It has to be defence.
Do you know
including the goalkeeper?
Do you know what? I actually agree with a lot of what HG said there. I've often said this myself. If we would have done defence, people would have been screaming about the midfield and the forward areas. And the reality is we had so much to do. It was always going to take time to get it done. But, even if you don't expect Spurs to come out and go out and buy 6 world-class players, I think where fans get frustrated is we never come out of a window sort of saying, okay, yeah, we're stuck sort of in every position. Let's go full throttle at it. Let's see where we can go. We're always going, yeah, if we can get things right, there's an outside chance, but this could hold us back or that could hold us back. And I think that's where, I'm starting to get very frustrated. It's like, when can we just come out of a transfer window and go, yes, we've got everything, let's give it a go. But also, when you're chopping and changing managers the way you do with different formations, different styles of play, you're inevitably adding to your list all the time, of what you've already got to do. Because a manager might come in and say, okay, well, you brought Sessegnon, for instance, don't fancy him, I want Perisic. And, then you've got another manager, so you've gone from a 4 to the back to the 3 at back, which then means you need extra centre-halves, so instead of buying one, you loan one in. And it's kind of like you're constantly adding to your list. What we do need is a long-term plan. Bring in a manager that they want to back. Instead of sacking them when teams get tough, back them. Do what Edu done with Arsenal. They could have easily sacked him last season and wrote him off with the fans and the media and everyone else putting the pressure on him, but they didn't do it. They backed them. And look at the rewards they've got this season. And that's something we need to do. We need a bit of stability now, especially with Kane and Son. You don't know, like if Kane goes, he's got a year on his contract. If he goes, you're taking his goals out of the team. It's going to be very hard for what we've got already for people to make that up. And you can't guarantee that Son's going to make it up, judging by this season's form. So what we do need to do now is we need to bring in a manager that's going to be here for 3-4 years. Hopefully we'll have is going to be the manager that will get the best out of Son and Kane, but also be here and pre-plan for their exit. Because once you lose Son and Kane, if we do not shore up that back line, which it should be done, and I've been on about it for 2-3 years now. I'm sick of talking about it. But if you don't shore that up, you're then in a position where you're taking a lot of the goals out of your team, but you're also shipping a lot of goals. And that's an absolute recipe for disaster. So what you need to do now is you need to bring in the back line. You need to bring in a new goalkeeper who can do both sides of the game. Good with his feet and a good shot stopper. Get the solid foundation in place so that when Kane and Son do go, you're not feeling a massive burden and you're always still in games because you've got a back line that can keep clean sheets.
Yeah,
it's funny. Like we're talking about. Sorry, going back. Like, we talked about these. The 2022 was the attacking window, and 21 was the mid. Whatever. Like when Pochettino signed his last bunch of players, they're midfielders. Like he knew that Dombele and Lo Celso and Sessegnon, none of them were gonna. I mean, I don't think he saw Sessegnon as a left back. Maybe he did, but he still was like, I'm trying to replace Dembele. I think Danny Rose is going to go. Like so, you can see the logic. But there was this idea of like. The rest of the defence was okay. We still had Jan and Toby, that's fine. And obviously Kane, Dele was around and still doing well. So you see the logic to it. But it seems really obvious now with hindsight. But we've spent the last few years doing this painful rebuild and appointing managers that had no interest in any kind of rebuild. They were all about win now. And of course Spurs fans, I think, well, we've got Harry Kane and we've got these great goal scorers and we're in a really good position to go and win something. We all thought the manager was the problem, and don't get me wrong, like Pochettino wasn't perfect because he did bin 2 of the competitions. So there was this like we're trying to rotate a ball in various directions and keep it moving, but it's like one of those slide puzzles. Like you fix that problem, but that one's still there. It's Yeah, and with hindsight, I feel like you can look at it and say, yeah, we made mistakes, but for various reasons, they were all understandable choices. Like bringing in Mourinho and Conte was an understandable. Nuno wasn't. There was no reason for that. But the other ones, You could see there was some logic to it. It's just that now we're in a situation where we've got a bunch of young players, even the ones we don't want, even like Reguilon and Ndombele and Asilso, they're all 27 and younger. Even Dele, if he was still here, is 27 in a few weeks. He's not old.
You love Dele, man. You love him.
I do love Dele, but like I don't mind that he's not around anymore. But I just think that this was this idea that like we're still trying to build something, and so if you get a manager that comes in and says, you know what, you've got 30 odd players, there's some I clearly can't keep, right? I can't keep them all around, so we're going to move some on. But I'm going to say, you know what, 20 odd of those players I do want to keep around, I do want to work with, I do think I can build the team over the next 2 or 3 years, then brilliant. That's what we need. Someone who wants to build something with a lot of what we have. Because we can't have someone come in and say, you know what, I need another 4 or 5 world-class players to do anything. And if the players that I have can't perform, I will throw them under the bus at every opportunity because I win. My reputation can't be sullied. I'm the winning manager, so it will never be my fault. You want a manager that comes out and says, you know what, I made a cock up. I'm going to protect the players. I'm going to build them up too. The amount of money they're on doesn't matter to me. Like, a team will always beat a bunch of individuals, and if the manager only cares about himself, then the players will only care about themselves too. You can't build a culture of a spirit, a team spirit, if the manager does what Conte and Mourinho did. You just can't.
So, sliding in to the next point on the run sheet from that, HG, and I'll come to you, Davo. Mm-hmm. What next then? Like, if that's what we want to do, company has been mentioned in the media today. Mm-hmm. So, like, what next manager-wise then? Who could this guy be to carry out what HG said we need to do there? Could company be the guy?
Well, I mean, what next for me has got 2 options. One is Enic go, and that's not going to happen. And we're not having another discussion about Enic. Don't worry. No. I promise. All right?
Because you've gained a lot of Twitter followers this week by your brilliant talk sport thing. And I think though tonight, mate, you saying Son should be sold for 25 million or whatever, mate. A lot of them are gone. They've all left you, mate. So see if you can gain a few more back now.
Yeah, but I did say that when I start talking about Duran B-sides on Twitter, that's when the rest of them will go as well. Yeah. Come on, right? Okay, seriously. Yeah, look, I think, okay, so part Enic, obviously, I don't want to talk about that. But if we look at what it looks like, I think we're all agreed, and everything these days is a reaction as to where we are as a club and the owners that we have and the setup that we have, is we need a manager who... You need a younger Poch. I don't want Poch back. Going back never works.
It's not going to happen.
No, I don't want. Mate. It's not. Now he'd be back now, so it's not going to happen. I don't want him back, right? So we all agree we kind of want the next Poch, right? That's the profile, right? And so with company, right now, question for HG. I thought I got vibes that he didn't impress that well at Anderlecht. Is that right or wrong?
I mean, it's weird. Anderlecht are traditionally the biggest team in Belgium, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know that in recent years, was it Bruges have been in the Champions League, and the 2 Ghent twins that everyone gets muddled up have been pretty. And Anderlecht have fallen away, right? I hear that Anderlecht did better than expected last season, but they still finished 4th, and the champions were the Brighton B team. So it's like he did a really good job. But I was surprised when he got the Burnley job, if I'm honest, because Burnley with the parachute payments were always going to be a good chance, a good bet to go up. So it was a great move for company, but clearly Burnley, I don't know what, but yeah, let's see if Burnley play tonight. But what they've lost 2 games all season, I think, in the Championship. They're miles clear at the top. You look at that and you think, okay, like if he's come into a bunch of players that he barely knows. They sold a bunch of players last summer anyway, mostly to Everton. And so it's a whole new team, and he's got them doing what they're doing in the Championship, which is, even with the money, still a pretty difficult league to get out of. I can understand why people think that company is the option, but I don't know too much about what he was really like at Anderlecht, because, again, like you have this idea of Anderlecht being the biggest team in Belgium, and they finished, I think, 4th in the league. Like, it wasn't massively impressive if you looked at their league position.
Yeah, so if you go back to go back to Poch, right? I think he did 2 seasons at Southampton, and I remember the Southampton fans being pretty annoyed because Atkins got back to back. Sorry, go on.
He came in halfway through the first season, didn't he?
Yeah, I actually think it was quite early on, and the Southampton, because Atkins got back-to-back promotion, the Southampton fans were very upset about that, right? Yeah. So Poch did a year and a half, a lot of good work. I remember he did really well up at Old Trafford and the rest of it, and he impressed, right? And then you look at that profile, and I think to myself, company might be a bit too soon, and then you're always going to get from the sniping from the anti-top media that he's just waiting for Guardiola to go and he's a City boy and all the rest of it, right? Then you kind of look at that so my approach to it is I go, all right, get a potential manager or someone who's doing well lower down in the Premier League and got some Premier League experience. You look at someone like Thomas Frank, so he's got 2 seasons in the Premier League. He obviously works within the structure that a lot of it is about. I think it's a little bit of Moneyball, there's a lot of data analysis and all the rest of it. But his challenge was Emerson kept them up second half of last season, and they've gone on to do better, right? So you look at Frank, that's a possibility. De Zerbi has got Brighton scoring goals where Potter couldn't, but you might want to ask yourself, is it too soon? So I think you're looking at that profile of manager there. I'm not sure about Enrique. I think it's too much of a leap to do that. Who else is there? Nagelsmann is a Nagelsmann, I just have a feeling of AVB about him. I just think he's young and will the senior players like him? I'm not sure about that. And, I'm not a massive fan of skateboarding, but skateboarding to work doesn't do it for me. And so I would be looking at, I'd have a think about Frank, right? But if we look at Frank, let's not all make the assumption that if Ivan Toney gets off, and I wouldn't bet that's going to happen, and he's not going to get Raya, but I think you look at Frank really, because I think you get Frank in, and you do the clear out. Your Lloris goes, your Sanchez goes, possibly Kane's going to go this summer, and you say to him, I think as Spurs fans, what we would say is if Frank comes in, plays a more exciting brand of football, gives the youngsters, you give the youngsters a chance. We've seen how Skipp's kicked on second half of the season, and he was 4th choice this season, really. And we see progressive football, we see attacking football, and we see progress over the next 2 to 3 years. And as a fan base, when we have periods where it's not going wrong, we are going to have to display the P word, which is called patience. Patience. And that's what I know the content of all our YouTube streams and podcasts don't thrive on. But that's what we're doing. And if we see that as a clear plan of that's what we're going to do, and the director of football, whomever that is aligned with Frank, it's all in the line. That for me, apart from Enic being sold, that's what we should do.
I mentioned Frank a while ago, long before we were even talking about Conte getting sacked, and I didn't dig it. I got pretty much shit on. But Irish, because you've not been on our channel before. Obviously, you've got your own, and you give your opinions on that one. So, first of all, the news on company, and then how do you think, or what would you like to see, or where do you think we'll go?
Look, with Vincent Company, I would rather wait and see what he does in the Premier League next season, to be honest with you. I think it's too soon. I think you look at Gerrard, done a good job at Rangers, jumped to the Premier League, showed it was a different ball game altogether. You look at Lampard, he'd done decent enough at Chelsea, but when he didn't have that protection, he was sacked. Look what sort of happened at Everton. And I would argue, I didn't think he was that impressive at Derby County anyway. Seems to be a lot of call for these ex-players to sort of get these big jobs, and most of it is driven by players that are already pundits that played with them. And for me, I think it's far too soon by Vincent Company, even though I will say that video of his team talk, I think was at Anderlecht, that did give me a rock on, and I absolutely loved it. But I think it's too soon. I think Thomas Frank, I hear what you guys are saying, For me, again, I think it's a massive step up from a club like Brentford to Tottenham. He hasn't really managed the club at that sort of level and that magnitude, but also he's one of the only managers on the managerial candidate list without any European experience whatsoever. And for me, that's why I sort of strike him off. Where I would like to go is I actually want Pochettino back, but like Dave said, if it was going to happen, it'd be in the dugout already. They wouldn't persist with a Stellini or a Mason. But where I'm at is I think we should look at someone like Ruben Amorim, sporting manager. You know, he got the job at Braga. He only lasted there 6-7 months, won the Portuguese Cup, went to Sporting. He ended up, I think, winning their first league in 20 to 30 years. And, you know, he's won the League Cup the Portuguese League Cup 4 times on the bounce. He done a number on us in the Champions League. He dropped down to Europa League, done a number on Arsenal. He plays very good attacking football. And I like what he's about, to be honest, Ruben Amorim. So he would be the sort of guy that I would be looking at. He knows what he wants to do in terms of pressing. It's sort of a bit similar to Poch, players high enough up the pitch, block up the middle, force the ball out wide into pre-planned traps. And I think it'll suit a lot of what Spurs fans have been asking for on the front foot football, pressing high up the field. And I really am impressed with Amorim. If you look at a lot of the recruitment, Pedro Gonçalves, brilliant, highly sought after Europe. What is his name? Paulinho being picked up, gone to Fulham. There's another, Nuno Mendes picked up and gone to Wolves. There's another one that's been picked up and gone to PSG. So that, you know, a lot of his recruitment and a lot of the players he's asked for has been good. He brought Marcus Edwards into the club. Look how he's developed him. He's not afraid to work with youngsters either. So for me, I think someone like Amorim would be a breath of fresh air at this football club. And plus, he's got European pedigree, European experience. So that's why I would look to maybe bring someone like him in.
That's what you look to do, mate. What do you think will happen?
Oh, well, honestly, you're asking me to predict what I'm going to get off my missus this year for Christmas. It's still hard to tell, to be honest with you.
Socks.
Well, you know, that's
who's the managerial equivalent of socks then, Irish? Come on.
Look, I'll tell you where I think the club will go. My bet is that they'll hire someone not in a job, in my opinion. I think when you look at the last few appointments, Nuno, Jose, Conte, none of them were in a job when we hired them. So I reckon that's probably the route we'll end up going down. That's where I'd be looking.
Yeah, because we don't play any compensation. That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Like, look, Nagelsmann, I know a lot of people want Nagelsmann, but
he's got Levy written all over him, mate.
Do you know what? You've got to ask questions. I know people love him because he wears skinny jeans, he drinks oat milk lattes and all that sort of jazz, right? But the reality is, you know, Bayern Munich have had a winning culture and a winning institution built there for decades. They paid 25 million to get him in and got him out the door very, very quickly. You've got to question what they've seen working with him in close quarters, why they were willing to get rid of him so quickly.
They found him a bit childish, I think, Irish, didn't they? I think they found him
if you're
a bit
looking for leaders at
immature.
Tottenham, you've got to ask yourself, if you're looking for a leader at Tottenham, is he the right guy? Probably not on that basis, you know?
Yep, maybe so. HG, on those points, what are you thinking? Company and the rest of them?
I feel like a whole bunch of names that have come up, like Nagelsmann and De Zerbi and Thomas Frank, whoever, they all have reasons to say no, right? Like Nagelsmann may well think he's got a better option than Spurs at some point in his future. De Zerbi may well think, you know what, if Brighton are my stepping stone to a really big job, I don't need to go to Spurs to have another really, like if managers see us as that stepping stone, which they may not. They may think, well, Spurs are, I can't go to Spurs and then go somewhere else, right? So it's like Brighton is the perfect place for him to be. I don't think he's going to want to go anywhere. Thomas Frank, yeah, I guess at some point he will want to go away from Brentford, and you know, will he stay within the Premier League? Is Spurs probably the highest that he could attract? I don't see any of the bigger teams or the other big six teams really going for him. Pochettino, we all know that he's basically seems to be begging for the job, but the club aren't interested at all. Amorim, Company, like I would be more willing to take a risk on Company than I would on Thomas Frank, based on how Burnley play their football. And if he's got these lesser quality players. I don't want to say that because I don't know anything about Burnley's team. But if he's got them playing against players of similar ability and winning week in, week out, I quite like that. I'm attracted to that. I could understand, and I haven't seen this team talk that seems to have been doing the rounds.
That's good.
But I just think that, again, if he's successful at Burnley, well, there's a level probably higher than Spurs. So it just feels like we're looking for someone that sees Tottenham as kind of a chance to actually build a legacy, and I'm going to be at Spurs for a Pochettino length. 4, 5, 6 years. I back myself to do it. I want to build something. I want to be that guy. And that might be, if you're a Spurs fan, you want to be that guy. But if you're building a career, are you going to, stick your reputation on it? And that's a tough thing. So I don't really know who's going to get the Spurs job. I suspect it will be a whole bunch of Brendan Rodgers, frankly.
Oh. Sell big hands to us, HG, because since in our group we've got a few Aussies, and I've done a little bit of research on YouTube on the scouting reports, and I've listened to a podcast where I've heard him talk, an Australian podcast, and he comes across, I quite like what he's selling, but you obviously know a little bit more about him, I'd take it. Could you sell him to us? Could you see us going for him?
I think if Ange was the same age as Pochettino, he would probably be my first choice, frankly. Considering that he's won wherever he's been, right? I mean, that's a big selling point. And again, maybe in leagues where you don't have behemoths. I mean, Celtic, again, it's a two-horse race, but he had to get over Rangers, who were doing pretty well. In Japan, I don't think he was I don't know if they have behemoths there. In Australia, Brisbane are like the provincial nothingness, and he took them to 2 titles. So
there's a lot of behemoths in Australia.
Japan, the team he took over were near the relegation, and he ended up winning the league with them.
So I just there's a lot to love about Postecoglou's record and how he plays football and the press conferences he gives. Right, I like that. I'm bored of I like either throwing players under the bus or saying things that don't make any sense, contradictions all the time. Pochettino contradicted himself all the time.
Yeah,
I quite like Postecoglou's straight talking. I'm basically Martin Jol, but not. Like, I liked Martin Jol. I liked how he dealt with the press. It felt like you had someone who was going to be your mate in charge of your team and also knew football rather than just some random who you liked. So I think Postecoglou's age works against him, and I think, as I talked about earlier, with fans, they don't want someone like that. Like, I think Postecoglou could see Spurs as being, this is the best I'm ever going to get. I'm really going to go for it. I'm really going to try and do something. But I think fans and the club probably want someone younger. And Rodgers, his time at Leicester is done.
Mate,
right?
and Levy's been for him before.
Yeah,
Levy likes him.
That confirms. Like, everyone knows I hate Rodgers, but the fact that Levy thinks he's good is enough to confirm to everyone that he's not. I just think that he ticks so many boxes. He's still quite young. He's had experience of various things. He's won things at Leicester. Like, it just seems like his time at Leicester is over. Vardy's aging out. Tielemans is leaving this summer. That club is probably going to struggle to stay where they are. Madison's going to go. It's the perfect time for Rodgers to get out. And if Tottenham is sitting there and all the other managers have said no thanks for various reasons, I'm making myself ill just thinking about it. I've got to stop talking.
It'd be funny, wouldn't it?
From obviously a Tottenham fan, obviously living in Australia with an Aussie passport and a British passport. If Ange gets it, there's going to be a few people at work will come up to me and start talking to me about how the Hotspurs are doing, for a start. And I've had that before, to much hilarity. And Tottenham will go a bit more mainstream over here. So it'll be quite amusing, because I think I said it last week.
I don't think it would happen. I don't, because I think that the club want to go somewhere younger. But I think that really is the biggest issue with Postecoglou, more than anything else. Like, don't get me wrong, the fans will be like, Celtic, it's a Tin Pot league, not done anything in Europe. All of those things are probably true because he's never managed in Europe before Celtic. But if you look at the way he gets his teams playing, and if you want some kind of unifying figure, I think of all the managers, he's outside of Pochettino, weirdly, I think he's the one who could unify the fans behind him. They could look at him and say, he's going to defend our club, he's going to defend our players, and he's going to build this culture where we fight for each other. And at Spurs, whether it's in the stands or on the pitch or at the training ground or whatever, we haven't had that fight since the season before Poch got done. Because even the Champions League season was a fluke, right?
Yeah,
So we're going back a long time. But I just think that's what we need to create. And like Amorim is a good shout, and I like that. I saw a comment saying that Amorim has ruled himself out of it. I don't blame him. Spurs, again, are not a club that managers who have a reputation to uphold want to go to. It just it feels like we're going to get sloppy sevenths again. But there are quite a number of managers that I still think could do a good job.
There's more good managers about this time.
I mean, I think so. I mean, like, obviously, it's very similar to the Nuno summer, right?
Yeah.
And I think like Thomas Frank is probably the Nuno right now, where like he got the team promoted. They've done well in the Premier League. What's the next step? Obviously, it didn't work out. And again, like Brentford aren't known for being a great footballing side. I mean, Dave's right. Ericsson kept them up, but still, they don't pass teams off the park. They're very narrow, and they've got 3 central midfielders and 3 central defenders, and they play to their strengths. And they have 2 strikers, and a very good one as well. It feels like for Spurs, you know, who is the Fonseca that the Spurs fans threw their arms up and said, "Who is this guy? Never heard of him." Right? That I feel like Postecoglou is probably the Fonseca of this year. Like there's every manager from 2 years ago that we were linked with has an equivalent this time around. It's about, to me, everything needs to be unified, and so I do think Postecoglou would be a good choice, even if it has a possibility of bombing out. Well, they all do because it's Spurs, right? Like they all have a possibility, but like, considering the cultures that he's installed at other clubs and a winning culture that he's installed at other clubs that has gone when he left, then I just feel that it wouldn't be a terrible choice. Although
I think you're selling me on it. I mean, I'm quite sold. As I said,
He'll try and win every game.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that from a manager's point of view, if you are that manager who brings that first trophy since 2008, and granted, Ramos was gone within 10 minutes after that, right? But he did have Berbatov and Keane sold under his feet. If you're that manager who comes in and gets you the first trophy, I mean, that's an impressive thing to have on your CV, right? Yep. That you've come in and you've got that trophy. So I think that someone who kind of wants to back himself, because you kind of got a little bit of a win-win situation, right? From a manager's point of view, because come in, change things around, win that trophy and put together a younger team and we do stuff, you're a win. Come in, it all goes terribly wrong. You can blame it on Levy and Enic, look at everyone else, and then off you go into the sunset with your payoff. It's not such a bad, I think it's not such a bad position to be in. So get in Ange, get a bit of a Aussie temperament in there, create a good culture around it. You're actually selling that to me. If you said to me Ange or Rodgers, I'd go Ange every day of the week.
Yeah, I hope everyone would. I hope everybody would, genuinely. It's not because I'm an Ange fan. I don't think I've ever seen Celtic play under Ange. I'm basing it on the interviews I've seen with him and what he's done previously. There is another name that's come up in the comments. I'm going to put it here. Is it Arne Slot, right? So, I used to live in Holland. I do follow Dutch football. He's only, I think he's 4 weeks younger than me. So he's 44, almost 45. He's at Feyenoord, which is, historically the second of the three, but frankly the third of the big three in Holland. PSV and Ajax have been better run for a long time. Feyenoord has been the basket case that sometimes gets it right, but generally gets it wrong. And he's turned him around. And he joined them while he was at AZ, Alkmaar, sorry, I'm doing the Dutch thing. And at Alkmaar, he had them top of the table, or joint top, and then COVID hit. And it was a team with Boadu and Stengs, who all looked at being the next best thing, and they flopped when they went to French football and did nothing. I think Boadu's still at Monaco. But the best of the players that they had was Coke Miners, who went to Atalanta. But it was a team of pretty much no ones. This Feyenoord team He got them to the Conference League final last year and they lost. But again, a lot of those players they sold in the summer. They sold the guy to Leeds, and then Malacia went to Man United. They sold a number of their better players last summer, and I think they've lost one game in the league so far this season, and they're top maybe 6 points clear. So he's clearly, again, doing this, taking the club that doesn't have a culture of winning and turn them into a force where they went to Ajax last game and won. That doesn't happen. Feyenoord do not win at Ajax. So there is a lot to like Arne Slot for, but I don't know. Like I don't know enough about his. It's weird. Like Ange, you know about his personality. Arne Slot seems to be a very serious guy, which is also good. Right? It's not a bad thing. If Slot was interested, it wouldn't be a bad choice. I do think there are a number of managers where you can say, you know what, this is where Spurs are. We have to build something. We have to have a manager who wants to build something. And if it is Arne Slot or Postecoglou or whoever, so be it. But we need to strengthen the foundations of the club and get more stable. And you need to have someone around who can do that.
But if Enic and Levy want fourth, which is kind of becoming really very clear now, and you know, we get in these managers and it looks like we don't get fourth. I mean, as I said, if we play decent football and we can see signs of progress, a plan, and we've got younger players there that can be shaped, and we're out of the Champions League for 1 or 2 seasons, but we see progress and exciting football and a domestic trophy, I could live with that. But I don't think Levy and Enic can with the business model.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird thing because, like, I mean, was it next season? At the end of next season, there's probably going to be 5 Champions League teams, right? Yeah. And the money is going to be, I guess the amount of money available to Champions League teams will go up. The rights have gone up, so it's a weird one because Spurs is Europe coefficient is good enough that we could easily be one of the 5th team if there is a 5th team that's going in. Yeah. Or if it's like, is it top 5 and then 1 extra? I can't remember the whole situation for what the Champions League is going to look like in a couple of seasons. But yeah, you're right. Like the money involved is obviously important to Spurs, and no one wants to see the ticket prices go up. Like the prices inside the stadium to buy beer and stuff has gone up. So, and bearing in mind that no one can really afford those things, especially right now. So the financial part of it is massive, but I think that. I think that the fans are probably more important than the Champions League position, because I don't think Jose got sacked because we weren't going to get top 4. My personal opinion is he got sacked because it was the same weekend as the Super League and he thought it would try and take some heat off of that. The Super League was worth much more to him than Mourinho was, or any kind of. It would have guaranteed. I mean, if that had happened, it would have guaranteed we wouldn't be talking about qualifying for the Champions League anymore. We wouldn't need to. He wouldn't need to worry about that financial difference because it would be done. Absolutely done. So Levy understands numbers. He doesn't understand football. You'd like to think he would leave it alone. I don't know. But if it's Rodgers, please no.
Don't let it get to you, HG. Just wait. Just wait it out.
I hope that we do say to someone, you're going to get at least 2 seasons. If the first season, I mean, Nuno got 10 games, and the fans turned, and maybe rightly so, but the fans turned, and so I do think that unity is a massive thing with Spurs. We want someone who's going to say, you know what, we may not be the best, but we're going to bloody everyone's noses, and we're going to make sure that that they know that they've. I mean, it sounds awful. They know they've had a game, but it's that kind of mentality that Spurs have liked for ages. We can't compete at the same level as these teams. Lots of them have better players and better managers than we do. So we have to find a way to nullify them. We seem to do it with Man City all the time, but that's just defending. We haven't really done it with anyone else, and so that would be the next task.
So, Iris, have you watched a bit more of Celtic play with Ange as manager?
Yeah, I've watched them quite a bit. Over here, Celtic is sort of given to you as your second team. You always keep an eye on Celtic because, of course, it's a Catholic club and was built by founded by the Irish. So it's sort of given to every Irishman as a second team. Look, Ange Postecoglou, when he came in there, everyone slated him, including Celtic fans. Nobody had an iota about who this guy was. But very, very quickly, he turned that around. He got the fans on board, with some of the stuff he was saying in the press. But also, his recruitment was spot on. Now, that guy, Matt O'Reilly, he's a very good player. They picked him up from lower league. He brought a couple of players in from Japan, and everyone was like, what's going on here? And look, they've ended up ripping up the Scottish League, and he's took them on to win a Premier League title and overturn Rangers. And I would argue that they were way off Rangers but before he came in there. But one thing I'll give him, regardless of the opposition, he'll give it a go. Even against Real Madrid, he gave it a go. And they got a bit of joy during that game, okay? They end up getting beat well, but they got a bit of joy. But he gave it a go. And I think that's why Celtic fans adore him, because regardless of the opposition, you're going to see good football. You're going to see every individual out on that pitch give it their all. And they're going to have a crack. And I think that's why so many people respect him. But also, Dave, not enough people talk about the job he done at Australia as well with the national team. They were in disarray, sort of brought around a new era and then sort of walked away from it. I don't know why he walked away from it, but he walked away from it after qualifying them for a World Cup. This guy has had a very, very good career. But again, it is a big difference stepping up from Celtic to the Premier League. And I don't think you can be that naive in the Premier League. I'm not saying that, Postecoglou won't have tactics to maybe switch it up a little, but I don't think he can replicate exactly what he's done at Celtic and have a go every week and then bring that into the Premier League. Because the reality is with Celtic, you're expected to win the league every year, and it's really only a two-horse sort of league. And in Europe, they don't mind seeing their team give it a go because they have no hopes in Europe whatsoever. But coming to a Premier League in a club like Tottenham Hotspur, where, the fans, they do want trophies. They do want to see trophies. Even especially getting to the Champions League final, getting so close to the league, getting close in some of the cups. It's getting to the point where fans just want to get over that line because it's been given so long. And I'm not sure, someone like Postecoglou will be given the chance he needs. But look, I would urge, regardless of the next appointment, whether you personally think, you're happy with it or not, we have to give the next manager time. We can't keep calling for managers' heads the way we do. You have to give a manager time to implement it, especially, you hear people say, he hasn't been given everything he wants, but then they're still calling for his head. And it's like, you can't do that. You got to try and give the guy everything he needs, and you got to try and stick through the bad patches to get with the good patches. But regardless, we have to give the next manager time. I don't want Nagelsmann near the job, but if he comes in, I'll give him time. Because it's the only way Tottenham are going to progress. We can't keep doing what we're doing, hiring and firing managers, because before you know it, we'll be down in the bottom half of the Premier League.
And the thing for me is, like, as awful as it is, like, whatever players you've got to get the best out of them. So if you're throwing them under the bus in every press conference, that's it. I'm kind of gone with it. Like, you've got to learn from that. Like, once or twice, fair enough. It might, stick a boot up their bum a little bit. But if you're doing it every week, you're just going to tune out to it. Like, I can yell at kids all the time at work. But if I do it all the time, then they don't listen. It's, the teacher's yelling again.
But this is where I was talking. This is where the captain comes into it. This is what a captain's role is that, it shouldn't be the manager grilling them every week, having a go at them every week. Sometimes you need that leader in the squad who pulls the weaker mentality people in line and sort of does the manager's job for him, sort of in that dressing room. But
like company,
it's not happening. And that's why you're seeing managers come out and call these players out continuously.
Well, look, if you watch that company video of sort of, that was like what you'd expect someone like that off a captain, wouldn't you? I know it's years ago, but like Ferguson, managers like that wouldn't go in the changing rooms. The captain would go in there. First of all, he'd stay out, and the captain and the senior players would give all the team a bit of a roasting, wouldn't they? And then the manager comes in and does his part. I know stuff like that doesn't happen anymore, but you're right, Irish. You've got to have a captain who can call these players out and take responsibility for being the captain as well, and get dragging them players along. But we've got to move on a bit. We're in an hour 43 now. We have got a game on Monday, so which we were going to preview tonight properly. I don't think we're going to have much time to do that now. But Davo, we go to Everton Monday night. Stellini and Mason in charge. I think none of us think that they're going to be in charge at the start of next season. So what are we expecting?
Well, you got El Clasico. Is this El Ownership-O? The battle between the two clubs with awful owners. Who's in the worst position? Everton or us? I think it's a masterstroke to get Sean Dyche in terms of where they are. You're just going to have a battle of attrition. But in terms of kind of previewing us and this, that, and the other, we've got quite a few players out now, haven't we? Because I think Royal's out for the season.
Back.
Perisic, is he injured or is he back?
No, he's back.
He's back.
Trained today.
Right, he trained today. So you're going to have and Lloris is back. But, I know that won't happen. But I'd be keeping Forster in goal for a good while. Yeah, I don't think he's done too much wrong, to be honest. And I think Lloris has been looking really poor. And I know that your partner in crime, the man in New York, has got it right in for Lloris, which we established a week or two ago.
So.
Yeah. So I don't want Lloris back in, but we'll see what happens there. But
he'll be back in, mate.
I know he will. I think it'll be a tough game. It'll be an attritional game. What we're going to see is this whole kind of thing around: have the shackles been released? I don't think we're going to be seeing free flowing football. But I think Stellini, made some comments in the presser about he'll be adapting to his opponent and things like.
Yeah, Davo's frozen
in the middle of the park. We've only got. Have I frozen?
You're back now. Yeah, you're back in the game.
Right. I'm back in the game. So what we're going to see is, I think, at the end of the day, he's got to patch up whatever he's got of wing backs left because we haven't got many. We've got Porro, and in this kind of game, I'd probably played Emerson. Maybe, I don't know. Emerson definitely would have played Liverpool away, Newcastle away, United at home, but we haven't got that now. And Porro's not that great at the back. And in the middle of the park, we're kind of stuck with what we've got because of our injury situation. So the team really does pick itself. There might be some tweaking around approach, but not much really.
Now I'm
Have I frozen?
Now Gibbo's frozen. There we go.
Gibbo's frozen.
No one wants to talk about Everton. I think in this situation, we don't I suspect it's going to be the same 3-4-3, right? I don't think it's going to change anything. We don't have many central midfielders. I'd like to see a little bit of difference if we could. If we were going to maybe move Kulusevski a bit more inside and have a front two, that might be a good thing. Something different. But I think that Everton will do what they always do. It'll be their 4-5-1, 4-6-0, 4-3-3, depending on momentum. But they'll make it difficult for us to play through them, which is good because we can't. So I think it's a question of, trying to play to Spurs' strengths, which may well be crossing it in for Kane and whoever to get on the end of things. I don't think that I don't think playing a counter-attacking game is going to suit us. It would just end up 0-0, which is probably would be my prediction for the end score anyway. But it would be nice to see Spurs do something a bit different and not the same 3-4-3. Hope that the wing backs can provide the width and watching the centre midfield sit deep. I don't want that. I'd like to see a bit more invention, a bit more movement off the ball, and hopefully players will be willing to do that if they're told that that's what the manager wants.
Yeah, Irish. What are you thinking, mate?
Look, this one could go either way. You could see a massive reaction from the players because they did sort of bond together over what Conte said about them. But the reality is, I'll be honest, I don't think we're going to see too much difference. I really don't. I don't think we're going to see too much difference in terms of formation, in terms of style of play. I don't look at that squad and say, yeah, he's a leader. He's going to stand up. He's going to pull everyone together. He's going to get people to fall in line. And we're going to give it our all to the end of the season. I'm a bit weary on this. And, look, anyone that knows me knows I always predict the Tottenham win. I won't have a bad word said about the club because, I just love it so much. But I'm weary on this one because Everton are scrapping for their life. They're off the back of a 2-2 draw with Chelsea coming into this international break. And when you look at it, when teams put up any sort of fight against us, We don't like it. All you got to do is look at that Southampton game. The minute they started fighting, we absolutely crumbled. So for me, I think it's going to be a cagey affair. What I will say is we're sort of lucky that Everton wouldn't hit a barn door with a Boeing 747. So we're sort of lucky like that. But I don't know. I'm a bit nervous about this one, guys. I really am. I don't know why. I'm just nervous going into this one. I don't really have any faith, to be honest with you. I think the players already sort of want the season to be over.
Like, I'm glad you brought up the Southampton game because I know it's only been 2 weeks, but it feels like a lifetime ago. Like when I watched it, we're 3-1 up, and we just decided to allow them to have the ball, and they built whatever momentum they needed. They got the 3-2 very quickly. But even then, it was like, no, we're just going to sit back and defend. If there's any change on Monday night, I hope it's that we don't do that. Like, I understand that if you give Everton the ball, maybe they don't know what to do with it. And Southampton, to be fair to them, they made a few changes and they did. They knew what to do and they ran at us and it made it difficult. Everton may not have the players to do that, but I don't want them to have the ball. Like, they are still Premier League players and they can put one in the top corner from 25 yards. We've seen them do that. I want Spurs to have the ball. And if there's the only difference we see, if it's 3-4-3, but we're actually pressing and trying to win the ball and helping each other and not just running back into our defensive positions, I will be happy. If we do that, then I think we'll win. We've got better strikers. But that's the concern, is that we don't. And that we just kind of say, you know what, Everton, you're at home. Off you go, lads. Try and beat us. No thanks. I have no interest in watching that.
Dave, let's have a score prediction for Monday night then, mate.
2-1 Tottenham.
Got any thought? Will the team be pretty much what we think it's going to be? Can you see any little tweaks, any changes?
It's going to be exactly what it is because we haven't got a lot of fit players.
Irish. Let's have a. I know you're a bit wary, mate. Come on, give us your.
Wary or weary?
Yeah.
Both. Look, what I will say is don't take my score prediction too seriously because those who also know me know I will never, ever, ever back against Tottenham or bet against Tottenham. So despite what I said, the Tottenham man in me wants, I think I'm gonna go 1-0. Maybe just get over the line, Harry Kane. And I think the team will more or less be the same. I know you've got Piscozzi and Mundell up there training with the senior team at the minute, and it looks like they're probably going to fill out the bench, but I would expect them to maybe come off the bench rather than actually start. I think Stellini will rely on a lot of the senior guys.
HG, you don't like giving predictions, do you? But I'm going to ask you anyway.
I mean, I don't like it because I'm terrible at them more than anything. If I was good at them, I'd probably be doing it all the time. I said 0-0 when you were on freeze. I think maybe 1-1. I don't trust Spurs to keep a clean sheet, and I do think we've got enough firepower to score. But we've seen that. I don't think Everton will win 3-0. But we went to Palace in late December, and Palace were decent-ish then, and we beat them 4-0. So it's one of those things that anything can happen. Deitch has improved Everton. Spurs are a draw just seems the kind of thing where everyone can walk away feeling a little bit happy. So that's probably what's going to happen. I'll go 1-1.
Let me throw a scenario at you. A draw at Everton, 1-1, real shit game. Brighton, who were a good team, back at the new Tottenham Stadium, they turn us over. And we struggle against them. Because like you're saying about having the ball, HG, we ain't had the ball for 5 years now, mate. We've let other teams have the ball for 5 years. You went turning that round to us being possession-based in 3 days, mate. No, I know what you're saying, but I'm just saying that is where it's going to be difficult.
No.
What do the board do?
To be tiki-taka. I don't want us to decide that we're going to defend 35 yards on the pitch.
Yeah.
That's the thing that gets me. Like, you know what? Let's have an end-to-end basketball game. I'm all right with that because we'll beat them. We will score more goals than them. But if you say, right, try and beat us, well, I've got no confidence that teams can't do that. Southampton are bottom, and they've got 2 goals against us. So in the last, 15 minutes, no. Like, if we do that, any Premier League team has got good enough players to score goals. And I saw the comment about the fact it was never a penalty, which of course it wasn't. I mean, where would we be had that not gone in? Yeah, Conte would probably still be here. But I just, it's all about. I feel like Spurs this season, we are very, very fortunate to be fourth. There's no doubt about that. Like performance-wise, we are more 10th than we are fourth. But now that we are fourth, and we do have a bunch of players that don't mind a football. Right, like we're okay. Like if there are runners, we can pass it in little triangles. I believe that we have that quality. We may not be able to do it all the way up the pitch, but I still think we can do it. We can create chances. Porro will make those runs. Perisic will make those runs. Son will hopefully just stay as far away from Perisic as possible. But still, if we can get those people doing those things, we've got the goals to beat anyone. The big difference for me is that we actually say to teams, we'll fight you for the ball in midfield and not on the edge of our own box.
Yeah, let's hope. But Irish, thanks for coming in as a late addition tonight. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Great to meet you, mate. Brilliant opinions. Thanks very much.
No, look, thanks very much for having me, guys. I always enjoy coming in here, and having a conversation with you guys. So thanks very much for having me, and hopefully it's not the last time.
No, and Davo, once again, thanks for. Are you off? Are you working after this, mate, or are you? Have you got a day of leisure?
I've got a day of leisure. I'm going to Cockatoo Island because it's my cousin's birthday, so I'm going to go and have lunch there and have a few drinks. Always lovely to see David Harris. Northern Hemisphere, David Harris. Southern Hemisphere, David Harris. What could possibly go wrong? So thanks, mate, for coming on at the last minute. And
Dad sent me in here. Dad said I had to come in here and help out my brother. So
absolutely. And I'm probably old enough to be your dad. And HG, great to be on the show with you. Probably not expecting the level of abuse that you got for Andy Reid. You should have just stuck to Jimmy Walker.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I thought about Andy Reid earlier today for some random reason. I don't know why. There were plenty of players we bought in the mid-2000s that were worse than Andy Reid. So, Andy Reid, if you ever see this, I do believe that. But, yeah, I'm off work. It's the Easter holidays.
Oh, yes.
So, I'm happy about that. But hopefully Spurs won't ruin it.
Yeah,
Bastards.
Thanks for coming on, HG, and giving your opinions as always, mate. Very insightful.
Well, as in I incite violence. Is that what you mean?
No, mate. Give your opinions, mate. Always good. And I've been your reluctant host tonight. I got called in at the last minute, so thank you. I'm glad I've had you guys who've got plenty of talking in you, and I can just sit here and listen and just try and point the direction. So.
And thanks for hosting, Gibbo, because as you said, it's last minute, and hosting is the most difficult job.
Yeah.
That's why me and HG don't ever do it.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, mate. I like my Friday nights to myself, but my commitment to the cheese room, mate, I thought I'd drop in and leave my family for the night and come in and listen to you guys, tell us what's going to happen at Spurs. So literally, lads, all I've got to say is, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.